Good afternoon. I'm here to tell you about this steampunk journal that I just finished. And there are several things about it that are kind of special. The first of which is that I took a class at the Arrowmont Folk School, or Arts and Crafts School in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. And I'm going to put a link below about this class. If you are ever over in this area of the Appalachians and you want to go to either John Campbell Folk School or Arrowmont, Holtz, and I'll put her link in, teaches this class. It's called Books of the Earth. And we learn how to use rusty metal and using plant material as a resist. I think you can kind of see the leaf here. Then we also did some dipping into ferrous sulfate, lye, and tea to get all sorts of different items, and then even kind of combined the two techniques together to get some really interesting papers. And to me, they just kind of scream the need for steampunk. And as I am now on the design team for On A Whimsical Adventure, I looked through her paper collections, and she had a wonderful one called Somewhere in Time, as well as some steampunk lab science kind of ephemera. And so I decided to go that way. And then I wanted to do something really weird with the cover, and I took my inspiration from a local book artist named Daniel Essig. Once again, I'll put his website below so you can look at some of his fabulous books. But he does wooden covers that are coptic bound, and that's what I did here. And he also uses a lot of mica. And so this is a piece of irregular mica held on with these gears that are screwed into the wood cover. There's a little piece of an antique map, some sari silk, a little key, and a little charm, and I'll tell you more about that in a minute. And when you open the book, that window goes to the back, and then there's a picture here of a Victorian man, and I gave him a name. I named him Magnus. And so the other funny thing about this is that in researching steampunk and steampunk images, I ran into a lot of information at the Library of Congress on the 1889 Paris Exposition. And that was kind of, you know, the height of the steampunk history. The Eiffel Tower was built that year. Edison lit the tower, illuminated it, and that was the first time people had seen any sort of illumination that way. The Americans brought a telephone system over and let people listen over headphones and hear things in stereo sound, and it was just a very exciting time in the world. So that's kind of where things came from. So that's where we're headed. This is a combination of items from Somewhere in Time on some of my paper. This is all Somewhere in Time. This is a little Tim Holtz character, and there's some graphic 45 papers in here as well. This is, once again, the back of that signature with my rusted paper and some of the items that you can use from Somewhere in Time, including in her lab, I think it's science experiment collection. There's these little coin envelopes and these little specimen stickers, so I added that. All of these are images that you can digitally collage on the paper, and those are all with Somewhere in Time. This is an image, and there's several of these that you'll see along the way that were from some drawings that a person actually made at the expo. In addition to what I was using from Somewhere in Time, there's several little things in here because I had previously done a steampunk journal with using Artie May's steampunk collection, so I had some leftover items that I put in here that include this envelope and this piece of paper. This is back to Somewhere in Time. This is Artie Mays. These are some transfers that you can use, and I applied them to some of the rusty paper. Some more of that drawings that were made at the time. Artie Mays, Somewhere in Time. A little pocket with some tickets from the exposition. Another Tim Holtz little fellow, some more tickets from various items that went on, of things that went on at the exposition. This has to do with all the artists that were featured at the art pavilion. These are some transfers that Anya has with having to do with photography, and the other big item in 1889 was Kodak came out with the first box camera for amateur use, and so you had tons of amateur photographers suddenly taking pictures at events like this. This is a little magnetized area. So I told you I was going to tell you about that guy that's pictured in the front. I decided to do a backstory to this book, kind of like Nick the Booksmith does in some of her books, and I have this young man sending postcards to his mother about his trip to the expo, and things that are on here are a little bit of plagiarism, but taken from first-person accounts of people that were actually there, that were reported in newspapers and in documents that are in the Library of Congress, because of course Congress had put out money for the Americans to be represented. And there's all sorts of things. This is why there's a little gold charm and a piece of sari silk, because one of the things that most tantalized the gentlemen of the era was that it was their first introduction to belly dancing, and Paris was scandalized by these half-naked women who gyrated about, and they had some brilliant descriptions that you can read. But once again, in the pocket there's more of his history of his fake history of the event. Another Artie Mays page. A little flip here with one of the Tim Holtz gentlemen on it in a pocket. I designed several tags using the papers from Somewhere in Time, and that's one of them. Some more of the ephemera having to do with the expo. This is a little coin envelope that's part of Artie Mays' collection. Somewhere in Time. This is a little magnetized flip that has a pocket. These are some images from Graphics Fairy that I've actually applied to a piece of Somewhere in Time paper. Another one of Tim Holtz's little people. And a flip here that is Graphic 45 paper. So a couple of other little things. Here are some of the other envelopes that with items that can be created. This is the science experiment thing that's part of the science lab ephemera from On A Whimsical Adventure. But these are just little envelopes that I created using her papers and the digital elements that she gives, as well as these two tags in addition to the one that you saw. And now I'm off to another great adventure because I am going to create another steampunk journal using some of these same papers, because as I got to reading about 1889, that was also the year that Nellie Bly decided to be the first person to try to beat Jules Verne's Around the World in 80 Days, and she made it in 72 and set a world record Some people followed kind of close behind her and broke that record, but she wrote a little book about that, so I have been enjoying the book, and I'm going to make another thing. And then because I have been just designing away and had all sorts of leftovers, I decided to create a little trifold using 3 envelopes that I made on my punch board. And then it opens up and there's a little signature there, a little signature here, 3 pockets. I made some big journal cards that fit inside these pockets that have some ledger paper on the back, and made some other kinds of gentlemanly tags to go in here. So sometimes you just kind of get rocking and rolling and off you go. So I hope that you've enjoyed this as much as I have enjoyed playing with steampunk, and I hope that you enjoyed getting to see this book, because I really stretched myself on this one. Thank you, and I'll see you soon.